pray. Gracious God, may your Spirit be with us and direct us in these moments of proclamation. Amen. Our text this morning is part of a larger narrative from the book of Genesis. It's often referred to as the Jacob saga. It covers some 8 chapters and forms, I think, one of the most fascinating and remarkable stories in all of the Old Testament. You may recall how it began. Twin boys born to Isaac and Rebekah. Esau was first and then Jacob. And the writer lets us know that trouble is on the way even before they are born. Writing, he says, the babies jostled within her, meaning, even before they were delivered, they were at odds with one another. And Rebekah laments. She says, why is this happening to me? Well, as they grow and mature, Esau becomes the outdoorsman. He likes to hunt, he likes to fish, he likes to roam in the outside and hike. That's where he enjoys being. Jacob, on the other hand, is a homeboy. He likes to stay around the house, cooking and doing things of that nature, but he's also ambitious. And so one day Esau is out doing his thing and hunting, and he's gone all day long. And so he heads home, and he is famished, he is hungry, he's had nothing to eat. And here Jacob has put one of his better stews on the fire. And with hunger pains welling up within him and smelling the aroma of this wonderful stew, he says to Jacob, quick, let me have some of that. And Jacob, always thinking ahead, said, I will, but I want your birthright. Now, in ancient times, a birthright conferred special privileges and rights set aside for the oldest son. It entails leadership within the family, so it's very important. Jacob knew what he was doing. But at the time, Esau wasn't really thinking about that. He was famished. He wanted something to eat, and so he gave up his birthright. Well, with the help of his mother, Jacob takes that and he goes on to deceive his father Isaac, who had grown very old. He was partially blind. He couldn't see or hear. And Jacob deceives his father. And when Esau realized what had happened, he was furious. He said, the days of my mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob. Jacob is in imminent danger, and Rebekah knows this, so she sends him away to her brother Laban. And so Jacob goes to his brother Laban and spent quite a few years in that land. And while there, he marries. Actually, he has 2 wives. He cultivates a large herd of animals. And in that time, he grows quite wealthy. But in the back of his mind, Jacob always wanted to return home, and so the time came. And yet, as he thought about returning home, there was this sense of angst and dread within him because he remembers his brother's promise. It was still reverberating around his mind. The day will come when I will kill you. So the scene is set. And this is where our text picks up this morning. As he approaches home, Jacob with his wives and all of his children and all of his cattle and animals are following behind him. And he knows he can no longer delay. Their heart is in his throat. And he makes his way across the field. He sees Esau, but not only Esau, but he sees that Esau has 400 warriors behind him. And Jacob is wondering, is this my last day on earth? His heart is pounding. He sees Esau running toward him. And then the unexpected happened. Esau embraced him, hugged him, he kissed him, and they both began to weep. What had all the ingredients of a terrible tragedy became a profound moment of reconciliation and love. And here is the key verse, as Jacob says, "For to see your face is like seeing the face of God, now that you have received me favorably." In that moment, the shame, the guilt that had been in Jacob's life all these years melted away, because in that moment, Jacob saw the face of God. Obviously not in a literal sense, we know that, but the reality of who God is. Jacob saw the face of God, who was a compassionate, loving, forgiving God, extending hope and peace. Do you ever recall times when you have seen the face of God in someone else? It might have been a time when you said something that hurt someone else, an untruth about a friend. And that person says to you, "I forgive you because your friendship is more important to me." In such moments like that, you'd see the face of God. Years ago, when I was at First Christian, it was the month of December. It was the beginning of the Advent season. In the first Sunday of Advent, we always planned the great hanging of the green service. Lots of people were taking part, decorating the Christmas tree, lots of fellowship and music. I was very pleased with myself, thinking that God must be pleased with the way in which we lifted up our service to Him. And so after the service, I was standing by my office door, and I was visiting with several members, and another member came up to me and said, "There's someone on the phone who wants to talk to the minister." In that moment, I knew it was somebody who wanted help. And all of a sudden, these feelings that I had about how wonderful our worship had been, and I was sort of on cloud nine, now I had to go and deal with this. So I pick up the phone and I say, "Hello." Not very inviting. And the voice said on there, "Are you the minister?" I said, "Yes." He said, "My name is Kevin." Okay. And then there was a pause. And he said something that I was totally unprepared to hear. He said, "Are you mad at me?" I was just like it when somebody sees through you and knows what you're thinking. But I covered up and I said, no, I'm not mad. He said, "Well, I'm calling because I need a ride. Somebody had provided a motel room for me, but I have no way in which to get there." So he told me where he was, and I went down south of Fayetteville. I think it was an auto parts store, and there he stood. It was very cold on that day, and he was there in sort of cut-off pants, light jacket. And he got in the car, and I said, "Well, aren't you cold?" He said, "Not really." He said, "I'm from Iowa. I'm used to this kind of weather." So we headed north to the place of his motel room. And I asked him, I said, "Well, what are you doing here? What brings you to Fayetteville?" He said, "I'm looking for my father." "Oh, your father is here?" He said he was, but he's no longer here. He said, "I've done this several times. I try to locate my father, I find out where he is, and I send a letter. And by the time I get to where I think he is, he's moved." I said, "I'm sorry to hear that. How long has this been going on?" He said, "Oh, it's been a number of years." And as we entered the motel parking lot, I said, "Well, what are you going to do now?" He said, "I'm going to go back home." And I'm going to wait and see where my Father goes from here. So I got my billfold and I reached in and got whatever money I had to give to him. He said, no. You've been kind enough. And he left and walked away. A little after that experience, as I was driving back, I really felt ashamed of myself. Because here I was thinking this morning, or that morning, that in our Advent service, we had done so much to please God that we had offered all of this Christmas decorations. And yet in reality, God was not so much there as he was out here. This young man, struggling to find his dad, and it soon realized that what had actually happened for me, that I had seen the face of God. You see, so often we miss those occasions of seeing God's face in others because we're so busy. We have so many things to do, so many self-serving ways in our lives. And I remind you, it's not always those big moments, but quite often it is those inconspicuous, those small moments that God appears to us. In those times when we least expect it, we have the privilege, the opportunity to offer hospitality, forgiveness, and love to someone else. I remember reading about a few years ago, there was a church, an Episcopal service organization up in Kansas City. They had purchased the building and they turned it into a restaurant for the homeless. But it was a different kind of a setting, because usually when the homeless arrived, they would stand in line and wait to be fed. But in this arrangement, they were greeted at the door. They were seated at a table by a waiter. They were handed a menu, and they were given the opportunity to make a selection of what they would like to eat. And the food was brought to them, and there was no charge, no tap, just only warmth and hospitality. One homeless man was asked about his experience. Later, he said, "In all my years, I've never been treated like this. I really feel special." That's what God's face looks like. It's not the white-haired, the grandfatherly figure that sometimes we see or have as an image, but rather in acts of unconditional love, moments of extraordinary happiness and forgiveness and generous hospitality. Nobody looks like God all the time, but there will be those moments, those occasions, when someone might see that in you, and perhaps, hopefully, you will see that in someone else. And that you might dare to love wastefully, to be hospitable, to be forgiving and compassionate. On the day when Jacob was embraced by his brother Esau, in the midst of tears and joy, he saw the face of God, and his life was never quite the same way since. I suggest to you and to all of us, be open to those occasions where you might see the face of God, because it is really life-changing.